Kit Carson, the man who shaped the Wild West. Chapter 1. The rhythmic punch of a saddler's all stops. A teenager with piercing blue eyes looks up from his workbench, past the dusty window of a Franklin, Missouri shop. Outside, a line of ox-drawn wagons creaks westward, laden with goods for the fabled Santa Fe Trail. The men driving them are caked in trail dust and smell of adventure. 16-year-old Kit Carson sets down his tool, a decision hardening his gaze. The safe, confined world of the apprentice is over. The story of the Wild West was built by those who dared to run toward the unknown. In 1826, young Christopher Carson answered that call, escaping his apprenticeship to join a merchant caravan heading into the heart of the Old West. He found a new home in the adobe pueblo of Taos, New Mexico, a vibrant crossroads at the end of the trail. There, under the mentorship of grizzled trappers, he was reborn. He learned the skills of survival, trapping, tracking, and trading, and became fluent in Spanish and native tongues. This quiet, observant boy was transforming into a mountain man, mastering the very wilderness that consumed lesser men. But this new life had a brutal price of admission, one he would be forced to pay on the banks of the Gila River. As his first trapping party ventured into Apache territory, the sudden war cries of warriors shattered the stillness. Arrows whistled from the rocks. In that moment of his first ambush, the teenage Carson had to fight not just for his life, but for the new identity he had chosen. Chapter 2, Lord of the Rocky Mountains. A bone-chilling roar echoed through the pine forest. 20-year-old Kit Carson, caught in a clearing, scrambled up the nearest skinny tree just as two massive grizzly bears burst from the brush. From his precarious perch, he watched as they raked the trunk with claws that could shred a man to ribbons. This was the untamed kingdom he now called home. For over a decade, Carson lived the ultimate Wild West adventure as a fur trapper. He roamed the vastness of the Rocky Mountains with legends like Jim Bridger, enduring blizzards, starvation, and constant danger. He developed a deep-seated rivalry with the Blackfeet, warriors who fiercely defended their lands from the encroaching mountain men. His anchor in this nomadic life was his marriage to singing grass, an Arapaho woman. Yet the lifeblood of this era was the annual fur trade rendezvous, which was a raucous, whiskey-fueled gathering where a year's worth of pelts were traded for supplies and larger-than-life stories. But by 1840, the beaver were trapped out and silk replaced felt in fashionable hats. The era of the mountain man was dying. At the final great rendezvous, Carson surveyed the thinning crowd and sparse trade goods. He knew the wilderness that made him was changing. Adrift, he wondered what came next for a man whose skills were born of a vanishing world. That answer came 2 years later on the deck of a Missouri River steamboat, in the form of an ambitious young Army lieutenant with a map and a destiny, John C. Frémont. Chapter 3. The Pathfinder's Shadow. "They say you know every pass from here to the Pacific," said Lieutenant John C. Frémont, eyeing the compact, weathered trapper before him. Kit Carson simply nodded, his voice soft. "I've been through them." Frémont smiled. "Good. I need a guide." $100 a month. It was a fortune. With a handshake, Carson's legend was set in motion. Hired as a guide, Carson's unparalleled knowledge made Frémont's first expedition to map the Oregon Trail a resounding success. Frémont's dramatic published reports didn't just describe geography, they crafted a hero. Overnight, Kit Carson was transformed from a capable scout into a national Wild West icon, the noble, fearless Pathfinder. His fame exploded with a celebrated act of frontier justice, tracking down marauders who killed a Mexican caravan. But this heroic image was fractured on Frémont's third expedition. Under Frémont's expansionist orders in Mexican California, Carson found himself participating in the unprovoked slaughter of a Wintu village along the Sacramento River. A massacre he would later call a perfect butchery. As the gun smoke cleared over the ruined village, Carson, the celebrated hero, was left to confront a horrifying truth. He was no longer just an explorer. He had become a weapon of conquest. And with the outbreak of the Mexican-American War, that weapon would be aimed again. Chapter 4. War Hero, Family Man. Barefoot on the frozen, stony ground, Kit Carson bit back a cry of pain. Behind him lay General Kearny's army, surrounded and dying. Ahead lay a 25-mile gauntlet through enemy lines to San Diego. With a naval lieutenant and a scout, he began to run, each step a searing agony, the fate of the army resting on their shredded feet. The war made Carson a household name. His desperate barefoot run to save Kearny's troops at the Battle of San Pasqual was the stuff of Old West dime novels. After the war, a weary and famous Carson returned to Taos, seeking the peace he'd fought for. He married the young Josefa Jaramillo and poured his energy into building a ranch and a family, a world away from the chaos of war. For a few brief years, he was not a legend, but a husband and father, immersed in the rich Taos history and culture he loved. But the violent tides of American history would not leave him be. The Civil War reached the remote deserts of New Mexico. Confederate forces swept north, threatening the territory. Answering the call once more, Carson stood before the governor, who offered him not a scout's role, but a command. "We need you." Colonel Carson, the frontiersman, was about to become a military commander. Chapter 5. The Reluctant Soldier. All Indian men of that tribe are to be killed whenever and wherever you find them. Carson read the orders from General James Carleton again, his face grim. The Mescalero Apache were to be removed. The man who had lived among tribes who had married into them now held orders for their eradication. As colonel of the 1st New Mexico Volunteers, Carson helped thwart the Confederates at the Battle of Valverde. But his real war began under the ruthless General Carleton. Tasked with subduing the native tribes to secure the territory, Carson, the former Indian agent, was forced to become Carson the campaigner. He successfully rounded up the Mescalero Apache, but the next target was larger and more formidable: the Navajo. Following a brutal scorched-earth strategy, his troops systematically destroyed the Navajos' means of survival, burning cornfields, cutting down ancient peach orchards, and slaughtering sheep. His campaign culminated in the freezing depths of Canyon de Chelly, the sacred heart of the Navajo world. Looking up at the towering cliff dwellings, Carson knew a final invasion here would break their spirit. As his troops entered the sacred canyon, he understood he was not just fighting a battle, but erasing a way of life. Chapter 6. The Long Walk and the Last Battle. A long, snaking line of people stretched across the high desert, thousands of Navajo, wrapped in thin blankets against the biting cold. They shuffled eastward, toward the barren reservation called Bosque Redondo. From a nearby ridge, Carson watched the tragic exodus his campaign had created. The grim reality of the long walk. The invasion of Canyon de Chelly broke Navajo resistance. The result was the Long Walk of the Navajo, a forced 300-mile death march to a desolate reservation. It was a crime that would forever stain Carson's legacy and mark a tragic chapter in Native American history. His final major campaign took him to the Texas Panhandle for the epic Battle of Adobe Walls in 1864. Leading Ute and Apache scouts against a swirling sea of Comanche and Kiowa warriors, Carson fought a desperate, day-long running battle, using howitzers to stave off annihilation. It was the last great fight of his life and of the classic Wild West he represented. An aging, ill, and weary brigadier general, Carson took command of Fort Garland in Colorado, hoping to broker peace with the Ute, but a sharp, tearing pain in his chest was becoming a constant companion. A doctor's warning confirmed his fear. A ticking time bomb, an aortic aneurysm, was nestled in his chest. His body, like the frontier, was worn out. Chapter 7. Legacy, Blood, and Thunder. In a stark surgeon's quarters at Fort Lyon, Colorado, Kit Carson lay still. The man who had outrun grizzlies, survived ambushes, and shaped the map of a continent was held captive by his own failing heart. His friend bent close to hear his final, whispered words, "Adios, compadres." The end came swiftly. After a taxing trip to Washington, D.C., Carson returned to find his soulmate, Josefa, dead from complications of childbirth. Broken in spirit and body, he died a month later on May 23, 1868. He was buried in Taos, the town that was his true north. The Kit Carson of history is a man of profound contradiction, the fearless pathfinder and the reluctant soldier, the devoted family man and the agent of displacement. His life is the full, unvarnished story of America's westward expansion, the courage, the exploration, the violence, and the profound human cost. To understand the true facts of the Old West is to grapple with the complexity of Kit Carson, a man forever caught between the enduring myth of blood and thunder and the haunting reality of the history he helped make.